It's a pleasure to join you on this momentous day as the Biden-Harris administration launches a historic new initiative to end homelessness in America. We know our homes are the foundation upon which we build our lives. Our homes are where we live and where we work, where we learn and where we play. The COVID-19 pandemic reminded us just how important it is to have a home, a stable place to call home. When the virus hit America, we were all told to stay safe by staying home. But what if you didn't have a home? Even before the pandemic, more than 580,000 Americans experienced homeless on any given night. In the United States of America, the greatest nation in the world, every person should have a secure home. No one should have to spend night after night in a shelter or on the streets, beneath a bridge or beside a riverbank. That is why the Biden-Harris administration is taking bold action to address homelessness in our country. Today, we are launching an initiative called House America. It is an all-hands-on-deck effort to address our homelessness crisis. House America brings together leaders from across the federal government and from communities in every corner of our country to forge a historic new partnership. Our initiative will empower state, local, and tribal leaders to put our nation on the path toward ending homelessness using the unprecedented investments provided in the President's American Rescue Plan. The Rescue Plan delivered 70,000 emergency housing vouchers to support this initiative and $5 billion to create affordable housing for people experiencing homelessness. In addition, the Treasury Department is encouraging communities to support House America using the $350 billion in state and local relief funding they received through the President's Rescue Plan. House America calls on communities to use these historic investments to achieve two goals. First, to transition as many people experiencing homelessness into permanent, stable homes, and to provide them with rental assistance and access to vital services. Second, to increase the supply of affordable and supportive housing that is meant to serve people who are experiencing homelessness. I am proud to share that 24 tribal, state, and local leaders have already signed up for House America. These communities span our entire nation, and they include many of the folks joining our launch today. I want to thank every leader who has signed on to House America, and I urge every community in the nation to follow in their lead and join our historic partnership. I promise the Biden-Harris administration will do everything we can to support our House America partners. That leadership starts at the top with the President and Vice President, and it includes the 19 members of the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness. I'm proud to chair the USICH alongside our Vice Chair, VA Secretary Dennis McDonough, who you will hear from in a few moments. HUD will join forces with all our House America partners to put our nation on the path toward ending homelessness. We know there is dignity and grace within every person, regardless of where they lay their heads at night. Homelessness has no place in this administration's vision for this country, and I cannot wait to see the difference House America will make in people's lives. Thank you very much. I am now pleased to turn to my friend, VA Secretary Dennis McDonough, who serves as Vice Chair of the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness. Secretary McDonough.
Good afternoon, everyone. Secretary Fudge, thanks for those great introductory remarks. More importantly, thank you for your excellent leadership at HUD and your unrivaled leadership at USICH. It's a privilege to serve as your Vice Chair in this moment where we have an unprecedented opportunity to make real and lasting change. The way to make that change, obviously, is to have the right people in the room working hard towards a shared goal, funded with the resources necessary to make that done. HUD's House America initiative recognizes this fact, reaching out to mayors, as you've said, city and county leaders, governors, tribal nation leaders, to focus their efforts along with available federal resources to get this done. These are the folks who are leading efforts in every city across the country where we're struggling with homelessness. And these are the folks who, with our partnership, can make a real difference. Working in that way, we've made some important progress going back to 2010, as we've seen a 50% decrease in veteran homelessness. During that time, 3 states and 82 communities announced an end to veteran homelessness. But our success is best measured not by data, but maybe by the stories of veterans who we've helped get housed and who remain housed. Veterans like Alberto Scott, a Baltimore native. He joined the Air Force just weeks before the 9/11 attacks 20 years ago. After leaving the service and working in government security, complications related to service-connected PTSD unraveled his life. He found himself struggling with substance abuse, involved in the justice system, and homeless. But then a HUD-VASH voucher combined with VA social services gave Alberto the time and space to overcome these issues and return to a productive life. He found his way to a cemetery apprenticeship program at VA's Baltimore National Cemetery. And now, after several promotions, Alberto and his supervisor says, someday he'll be a cemetery director. That's the type of work we can and must do together, and results like Alberto's are made through taking targeted investments in housing first solution for veterans, coupled with the commitment of leaders at all levels of the government, putting resources into the hands of those like these mayors who know best the issues of homelessness in their areas and are best equipped to get those resources to the people who need them most. The Obama administration's mayor's challenge to end veteran homelessness, for example, revealed the power of local and state level leadership. As you know, Madam Secretary, when mayors get focused on a goal, things get done. We've also achieved those results by investing in more HUD-VASH and getting more landlords to honor HUD-VASH vouchers. And by utilizing supportive services for veteran families, which we call SSVF, as a critical part of preventing and helping families out of homelessness by helping them address the barriers in their path. Because it's not only about getting veterans into homes, it's also about putting them in a better position to successfully overcome the issues such as substance abuse disorder, depression, PTS, joblessness, and legal troubles that contributed to their being homeless in the first place. Yet it's important to recognize that most of the strides we've made in fighting homelessness among veterans were made from 2010 to 2016. And today there's a lot of work left to be done. Nowhere are the challenges we face more evident than in LA, where 1 in 3 homeless veterans are, one of the worst vet homelessness crises in America. We're committed to developing permanent, sustainable housing for homeless vets in our West LA project, a model community where veterans and their families thrive with the support of the governor. This will have an outsized impact on veteran homelessness across the country when we succeed in LA. It will help us get back the success we had in the beginning of the last decade and help us regain momentum across the country. And it may well serve as the model of one way to address homelessness among other demographics. House America provides us the opportunity to apply what we know works toward ending veteran homelessness to all homeless Americans in LA and across the country. The American Rescue Plan provides the resources to scale housing first solutions for non-vets. Together, we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to make substantial, lasting difference by leveraging the strong support of the president and his generous budget proposal, the support of Congress, HUD and VA efforts joining forces to end homelessness, models and interventions that answer the needs of all people across the spectrum of homelessness, veterans or not, and most of all, the collective experience and devotion of the leaders on the screen today, who we can learn from. Because every vet should have a home. Every person in this country should have a home. That's why I'm so proud to join you today, Madam Secretary, fighting with our full strength to fulfill the President's obligation to end this crisis for good. Madam Secretary, thanks again for the opportunity to join you today, and thanks to everyone for joining this critical initiative. Back to you.
Thank you very much. We're now joined by Gene Sperling, who's a special advisor to the President and the American Rescue Plan Coordinator. Gene?
Thank you, Secretary Fudge. This is such an all-star group, and I don't want to hold up getting to some of the main events. First of all, let me say that nothing happens without leadership, and I want to thank you, Secretary Fudge, because you not only have the resources here, but you are exerting the leadership, the convening power to make this happen. The easiest thing is to send out press releases, send out announcements. What Secretary Fudge is doing here is to use that full power of the presidency, the White House, the administration to convene and lead, and to have people like the mayors and governors on this call who are making that commitment. I also want to thank Secretary McDonough, who came right before me. You know, he was chief of staff when I was in the White House, and one of the statistics he used to make sure we focused on every week were things involving veterans, even the suicide rate. This has been, he has that passion and commitment. And I am right now on my way back to the White House, but my home is in Santa Monica. This is a very affluent town, and yet we know exactly what Secretary McDonough is referring to. I know the governor and the mayor feel this way too, that there is an unfortunate and just unacceptable challenge with veterans homelessness. And I see this every day in my life, and I don't feel that any of us can feel like we're doing enough when that exists. And I have talked to so many of you. I've talked to many of the mayors, governors coming on, Mayor of Philadelphia, Mayor Adler from Austin. I can't mention all of them, who are thinking about how to bring together all of the American Rescue Plan funds. So as the coordinator of the American Rescue Plan implementation, the main point that I want to make is that you have a historic amount of resources in different programs. And I want to make sure that people are aware and they are using all of the resources. Clearly, the programs that HUD is talking about, the home program, the voucher program, this is a historic $10 billion. The resources Secretary McDonough is bringing to the table. But I want you to know how much within the entire rescue plan there is that could also help supplement your efforts. Senator Manchin helped us get an $800 million program into the education department, which deals with the school needs of homeless children. That's $800 million there. One of the things in the emergency rental assistance plan is that the leadership at HUD and advocates said it's not clear these funds can be used for people who are homeless. That's wrong. So with that guidance, we went back and Treasury gave new guidance that said, just because it says you have to have a rental obligation doesn't mean it can't be a future rental obligation. And so now those funds can also be used for dealing with homelessness. The big chunk that is just not used enough, and I compliment those who are using it to supplement their efforts, is the state and local plan. This is $350 billion. It goes to every state, every city, every county in the country. There, when I deal, so many of you have been in the calls with me. You've been on the governors and mayors calls where we've talked about, edge cases, which Which are the areas of broadband that can or can't be used on the state and local? What's the recipe for revenue loss? All these are difficult, often edge gray issues. You know what is as straight down the middle on the state and local funds? Dealing with increasing housing instability and homelessness that has been exacerbated by the COVID. You don't need to check twice. You don't need to do a call. Those are acceptable funds. And so when you can use those funds, the veterans funds, the education funds, to supplement these two crucial HUD programs, including their counseling programs and the program for tribal governments, there is a lot there. So I encourage people to think broadly. Think of what can be done if you consolidate all of these different funding sources for a type of lasting and transformative change. The other thing I will say is that the American Rescue Plan is about rescue and crisis, but it was also about a long-term sustainable recovery. Many of the programs here are available not just for the next 3 months, but for the next 3 years. That is so that you can respond to the rescue and the crisis, but you also have the capacity to plan for transformative change. So you've got an enormous, starting with Secretary Fudge and so many people here, you have enormous expertise on housing and homelessness. You've got mayors and governors and tribal government leaders who are going to be talking about the things they're doing. If I can add one thing as the coordinator of the American Rescue Plan, is to say, think broadly, use all the resources you can. This is a historic moment. It is a once in a lifetime moment. We hope there'll be a reconciliation bill that will go further and will lead to greater needs for a greater supply of low income and affordable housing. But even right now with the American Rescue Plan, this funding is historic. I thank Secretary Fudge for her leadership in the Homelessness Interagency Council at HUD in putting together this House America initiative. I thank the other leaders like Secretary McDonough for their commitment, all of you. But again, think broadly, look broadly. There is a lot in the American Rescue Plan that you can use to make sure that you can provide all of the services that you aspire to fight homelessness, fight the indignity of homelessness, and more importantly, move towards that housing stability, that housing security that is just, to me, inherent in all of our belief in economic dignity and treating all of our people with the economic respect and opportunity they deserve. So thank you very much. And with that, let me turn it back to our leader here, Secretary Fudge.
Thank you very, very much. We are going to have some brief remarks from the following people in this order: Oakland, California Mayor Libby Schaaf, Mesa, Arizona Mayor John Giles, Maine Governor Janet Mills, and California Governor Gavin Newsom, in that order.
Thank you so much, Secretary Fudge. What an honor to be here and to accept your challenge to be part of the House America initiative. I'm here not only as the mayor of Oakland, California, but also as the co-chair of Mayors and CEOs for U.S. Housing Investment, a bipartisan group of 33 mayors from across this great nation, as well as business leaders. Together, we represent tens of millions of Americans. We are excited to be part of your launch and recognize your leadership in seeing that in the year 2021, where we are still grappling with this global pandemic, that housing is health. We do not have health without that foundation under our feet or that roof over our head. And again, thank you for your leadership in doubling down on the housing first approach. This historic investment in both housing choice vouchers, emergency housing choice vouchers, as well as home funds is going to make a huge difference right here in my hometown of Oakland, California. And Oakland is setting our goal as part of your overall goal to rehouse 100,000 Americans, to rehouse 1,500 Oaklanders, as well as construct new 132 new units of housing in the very, very expensive Bay Area. I just want to emphasize that if House America could accomplish just one thing, for me, it wouldn't be as much to meet your ambitious goal of rehousing 100,000 Americans, but more to make the case that housing choice vouchers should be an entitlement for all who qualify. That was an inspirational part of the political platform for Biden and Harris, and we agree that this is part of what the Secretary of Veterans Affairs said so eloquently, that we can build on the success of things like VASH, that we can solve homelessness, and that in a country as great as America, we should not tolerate, especially our children, our families, our elders, calling our sidewalks home. The concept of universal housing choice vouchers is one that is fully supported by our bipartisan group of mayors and CEOs for U.S. housing investment, and recently was lifted up by the business organization representing the giant 9-county Bay Area. The Bay Area Council's Economic Institute has also formally supported universal housing choice vouchers. In Oakland, one of the most heartbreaking parts of this tragedy that we all call homelessness is a huge increase in the number of first-time homeless seniors. And I do want to ground us just in a story and illustration. I'm thinking of Tyrone Bryant. Tyrone was born and raised in Oakland. His family had lived here for a couple of generations. He grew up in the same neighborhood as Damian Lillard, who went on to be a pretty famous NBA star. He plays for Portland, but he's always representing his Oakland roots. Tyrone was not as fortunate. Even though he was an athlete, he actually played on the community college football team. He certainly struggled with employment over the years. And as he aged, he found himself without stable housing, first surfing on couches of friends, later living in his car, and finally sleeping on the floor of the church where he still plays the drums every Sunday. Now, thanks to resources like housing choice vouchers and home funds, and particularly the leadership of our amazing governor, Gavin Newsom, we were recently able to piece together those different funding sources to purchase several single-family homes in single-family home neighborhoods and create shared housing for homeless seniors. Well, Tyrone is now living in one of those homes in the very neighborhood where he grew up. And now that he has a backyard, he's going to be opening a motorcycle detailing business. This is the dignity, this is the health that we can give back to our fellow Americans. And so I am hopeful that House America will not only meet this ambitious goal of 100,000 people rehoused, but to make the case for a permanent housing choice voucher entitlement. Ending homelessness should not just be a crisis response to a pandemic, it is good public policy. Let us take this moment and demonstrate that this is how America should look and feel. Thank you so much, Secretary Fudge, for all your leadership, your continued partnership. Oakland is in this 1,000%. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce my co-chair of mayors and CEOs for U.S. Housing Investment, Mayor Giles of Mesa, Arizona. John.
Thank you very much, Libby. You know, I'm reminded when I first became mayor back in 2014, I would make a point of telling everyone when I spoke on this issue that housing absolutely and homelessness is an issue in Mesa, Arizona. I only said that for a short period of time, and I stopped and I started saying housing and homelessness is not an issue, it is the issue in my community. And sadly, over the period of time that we've been dealing with the pandemic, that problem and the significance of it has really only increased. Let me tell you a little bit about my community. That last year, the median price for a single family home in Mesa, Arizona increased 29%. Over that same period of time, rental rates increased from 16 to 19%, depending on the number of rooms in a rental unit. So that this is, and I'm sure that each of you could share similar statistics from your own communities. Like everyone on this call, we've been working hard in my community to keep people housed during the pandemic, and to date, with between CARES Act and ARPA monies, we've spent over $26 million on rental and mortgage and utility assistance. But what we've discovered also, like many of you, is that this is not a problem that we can solve at our city hall. I heard Mayor Ginther a moment ago talk about the importance that he is very much a part of a region. And that certainly is the case in Mesa, Arizona. Mesa is the second largest city in the Phoenix metropolitan area. We're a city of 500,000 people, but our county and our region is over 5 million people. And I can tell you that the homeless folks in my community, more often than not, don't know if they're in Mesa or Tempe or Scottsdale or Phoenix. So as a result of that, we have obviously decided that we need to focus on a systemic and regional approach to rehousing families and individuals who are in need, and to add to our overall capacity of the region to supply permanent supportive housing. No longer can our region be sustained by the two largest cities, Phoenix and Mesa, providing all of the services. So we are now working on a regional approach because we know that obviously homelessness cannot be dealt with as a parochial issue. And the working together to create housing solutions is the best and only way that we're going to be successful. We are fortunate in our community, and I'm sure it's the same in yours as well, to have a great regional governments and to be facilitated by, in our case, the Maricopa Association of Governments. So we have 26 cities, towns, counties, and tribal nations that are all participating together in this work. As the mayor of Mesa, I'm committed to rehousing and adding housing capacity for temporary and permanent housing in our region, but I'm also fortunate to be to be the chair of the regional council and have the opportunity to help develop policies and plans on this as well. I know that the part of what's going to make Housing America successful is that this is a challenging program to participate in, and you've asked us to come up with specific, meaningful goals on how we're going to improve and grow permanent housing in our community. I'm proud to tell you that our region's goal is to create at this point is to create 1,225 new units throughout Maricopa County. The discussion on that goal is still in process and changes might occur, but if this is accomplished, that will solve 25% of our region's overall demand. It's not obviously a full solution, but it's a great start. And Madam Secretary, I appreciate the challenge that you've issued to my city and my region to engage in meaningful goal setting on this topic. So again, thank you so much for allowing me to participate in today's discussion and to share our city and region's goals in this area. And now it really is my honor to introduce Maine Governor Janet Mills. Madam Governor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Giles. Thank you, Secretary Fudge, and so many other participants. You know, you may not know, but there's a sign at the Maine state border when you come into Maine from New Hampshire. The sign reads, "Welcome home." That sign is there. I had it put there so that every person who enters our state, whether they're coming for the first time or returning for 100th time or coming here for the 1,000th time, that everyone knows they can find a home here in our beautiful state. We know that a home is more than bricks and mortar and beams and clapboards. Home is where my husband, Stan, and I raised 5 daughters. Home is where we sat at the kitchen table, paying bills and helping kids with homework. Home is where we slept safely every night. That gift is one that I will never take for granted. And I am committed to ensuring that every person has a home to call their own. Today, we, the state of Maine, take another significant step towards achieving that goal by becoming proud participants in House America, this national effort to end homelessness. Here in Maine, we've set a target to rehouse 1,000 households who are experiencing homelessness right now, and to add at least 500 new units of affordable or supportive housing for those who are homeless to our pipeline. In addition to emergency housing vouchers and home funds provided to Maine through the American Rescue Plan, my Maine Jobs and Recovery Plan recognizes the urgency of housing and homelessness, and it directs further coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds to address immediate needs. We have created housing navigators to connect homeless individuals and families to housing, and to assist those individuals with completing rental applications and provide support services that promote successful landlord-tenant relationships. Partnering with the state legislature, we enacted legislation to create a local zoning and land use commission to explore how we can develop more multifamily affordable housing. And we enacted legislation to create the most effective state affordable housing tax credit in the country. In partnership with the Maine Housing Authority, we've also distributed almost $63 million in federal relief funds to 11,460 households, staving off evictions at a rate faster than almost any other state in the country. These actions would not have been possible without the tremendous partnership of the Department of Housing and Urban Development and the Biden administration. Thank you, Secretary Fudge. Maine is a proud partner in House America. I look forward to working with fellow governors and mayors such as you folks and with the federal government to end homelessness in our state and in our nation until every person can hear those two short words that can mean the world to them. Welcome home. And now I want to introduce my fellow governor, the esteemed governor of California, Gavin Newsom. Welcome, Gavin.
Hey, thanks, Governor, and thank you all. In particular, let me, and with respect to Governor Mills and myself, let me just thank the mayors in particular. I had an opportunity to listen in the last session to all the mayors, and there's an old saying that localism is determinative, that the federal vision on the issue of homelessness and affordability more broadly will be realized at the local level. So I just want to thank each and every mayor that's in attendance here today, not only for being here today, but being here every day to focus on this fundamental issue. Look, in California, and Governor, you can appreciate this, anybody from California recognizes this, this is our #1 pre-existing issue of affordability broadly in all its forms and manifestations, but none more acute than the issue of homelessness. We will never realize the federal vision unless we reconcile the challenges out on our streets and sidewalks and the affordability crisis here in the state of California. And so I want to just level set by acknowledging our role and our responsibility, but moreover, the accountability that needs to be placed on the state of California, the 5th largest economy in the nation, the richest state in America, and the poorest state in America. And we've got to mind that gap, not by identifying the problem, but by identifying strategies and solutions to address the problem itself. So I want to extend not only appreciation to the mayors, but also, Madam Secretary, to you, because this is a radical departure from the last few years. Governor Mills can attest to that. We had a sparring partner, not a working partner at HUD. We were debating the merits, not demerits, the merits of a housing first model. We didn't have a secretary like McDonough who recognized his relationship and role and responsibility to be supportive as well. It was rhetorical, not realized in terms of the substance that you're bringing to the table. And this House America not only creates a numeric goal, but obviously is supported by an unprecedented amount of resources that you have provided, this administration has provided to states all across this country. And as a consequence, we can lay claim to a commitment of at least 34,000 units in terms of advancing the cause for House of America. And I can lay that claim of support because half of those 34,000 housing units, we have identified specific funding from the federal government, from the Biden-Harris administration. And we not had that support, we would not be close to getting where I know collectively we all want to go. So thank you for your faith devotion to the cause that unites us here today. Thank you for your commitment to ending the issue of homelessness. And thank you for recognizing the complexity of this issue. We recognize that at the end of the day, shelters, they only solve sleep, but housing and supportive services address long-term by solving the issue of homelessness. We also recognize the flexibility. I know that was discussed in the previous panel, but I also want to recognize your understanding of that flexibility. I understand that in my relationship with the mayors, many that are still with us, and I'm grateful to Mayor Schaaf, I'm grateful to Mayor Gloria and others that have been so determined to demand and expect more from the state, but also each other in terms of sharing best practices and solutions to this issue. But flexibility is foundational. And I think that flexibility is self-evident. Look, for us to address these issues in California, you look at the issues of people that are self-medicating with drug or alcohol addictions, people that are bipolar, schizophrenic, people that are suffering from depression, and all those that are dually and triple diagnosed. That requires flexibility. That requires us meeting people where they are. It requires, as Mayor Giles was saying, a regional approach to solving these problems and recognizing and reconciling our jurisdictional differences as well. And so I'm mindful of that approach in terms of the House America strategy. And I just want to double down on my appreciation for your recognition of that flexibility as we address these issues with urgency in the state of California. I'll just close by saying this. We're stepping up as well, not just putting our hands out in terms of federal support, but I want you to know this state, the most significant investment we've ever made on the issue of homelessness, we made last year despite this pandemic-induced recession. It was $950 million, almost $1 billion. We thought that was impressive. But this year, working with our legislature, we put out $12 billion commitment to address this issue. We're going all in. We don't want to play in the margins anymore. We're putting $3 billion specifically just to address the issues and the consequences, ironically, that emanated from the office that I'm sitting in back in that infamous 1967 budget that then Governor Reagan advanced, where he began the process of dismantling our behavioral health system here in the state of California. We're putting $3 billion back in this year's budget, a commitment for board and care home and lower law placement here in the state of California, unprecedented support to rebuild our behavioral health housing in the state of California. Billions of dollars of discretionary money going to the cities and counties, and billions more on our successful home key model, which is purchasing hotels and motels and converting them into permanent supportive housing. And by the way, we were able to take $846 million of federal money last year and convert that in 5.5 months to over 6,000 permanent housing units in 5.5 months. And so I say that in closing to make this fundamental final point. There's an old adage, once a mind is stretched, it never goes back to its original form. And I really believe that if there's one lesson from this pandemic that we're still resolved to get behind us, it's a relationship with time that's radically changed. And this notion that we're capable of doing so much more than we even imagined pre-pandemic. And so we're going to bring that mindset and that resolve, that sense of intensity and determination and intentionality to this issue in ways we haven't in the past. And it is a long way of saying this. It's just wonderful to have a federal government that gets it and wants to get something big done. And so we extend appreciation and an open hand. And we look forward to working with all of you to make real what we're promoting and promising here today. This is a fundamental and moral issue. Final words. I think it was Plato, and it wasn't Plato, it was Aristotle, who said you can't live a good life in an unjust society. And so in that spirit, in that light, we are here resolved with gratitude to all of you, Madam Secretary, particularly you, for your sincere commitment to this cause. Thank you.
Thank you. What are you doing?
OCO, I'm Chuck Hoskin Jr., Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation, the largest federally recognized tribe in the United States with over 400,000 citizens and growing every day. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has only exacerbated a shortage of safe, affordable housing that Cherokee Nation and Indian country as a whole has experienced for years. Madam Secretary, we appreciate you and the Biden administration for ensuring that housing needs across Indian country are part of a long-term COVID recovery plan, and that tribes are part of the dialogue focused on how we can recover and build back better. There is no better steward of housing dollars than the Cherokee Nation. We utilize federal funding to ensure our most vulnerable citizens, veterans, elderly, those with disabilities, first language speakers, and families with small children have housing security. We use recovery and HUD funds to address overcrowded homes and construct replacement homes for Cherokee families and create a greater sense of long-term security for our revered elders. Through a collaboration with HUD, we are also addressing veteran homelessness. Recently, we launched a pilot program for senior citizens to live in new efficiency homes. We plan to expand this endeavor across our reservation and provide affordable rent and a renewed sense of pride among those who live in these homes. We are also addressing home security for our first language elder speakers by building dozens of efficiency homes for speakers who are helping us with the critical mission of saving and perpetuating our sacred Cherokee language. The more we can do in the area of housing for this treasured population, the better protected our culture will be. No matter the type of housing assistance we offer our citizens, emergency assistance, mortgage assistance, or a long-term housing solution, we will remain focused on the goal of helping all Cherokees with their housing needs. Together, Cherokee Nation and HUD can and will effectively drive down the disparity on our reservation in Northeast Oklahoma. Widow.
I'm Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin. I'm glad to be joining other local, state, and tribal leaders from across the country to House America. Seattle's the fastest growing city in America. In addition to the crisis of COVID-19, we have faced a housing and homelessness crisis. In Seattle since 2017, I've announced more than $1.7 billion of investments to build 6,200 affordable homes, including 1,300 homes for individuals experiencing homelessness, opening over the next year. As we build back better after facing an unprecedented pandemic, the American Rescue Plan and HUD is making the rapid acquisition of 300 new homes possible. With our partners at the state and HUD, we're building permanent, safe homes more quickly than ever before. Addressing our homelessness crisis begins by addressing our housing crisis. And together, we can, and we will, and we must house America.
Hi, I'm Deputy Mayor Michael Hancock, and I'm excited to join other local, state, and tribal leaders from across the country to House America. Here in the Mile High City, we have committed to rehousing more than 500 households and creating 144 units by September 2022. Together, we will house America.
On behalf of the National Alliance to End Homelessness, I'm so excited to join you today for the launch of House America, an all-hands-on-deck effort to address the nation's homelessness crisis. We have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make a serious dent in homelessness with the unprecedented federal resources that are on the table. These funds can make a difference, but only if they're used strategically, focused on race equity and targeting people who are literally homeless and high need, including those who are unsheltered, aging, or living with small children. Thank you to Secretary Fudge and USICH so much for your leadership, and thanks to the state and local leaders who have already signed on. I hope that those of you listening will encourage your mayors, governors, and county and tribal leaders to join the partnership so that all people experiencing homelessness have a safe and stable place to call home.
At Funders Together to End Homelessness, we know housing justice is racial justice. We can't end homelessness without recognizing the structural racism that leads to housing insecurity and focusing explicitly on equity and justice. The launch of House America is an opportunity to use unprecedented public funding in new ways, centering people with lived expertise in the creation of policy and practice, engaging community organizations led by and for Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and partnering with philanthropy to think about the ways our system can shift power and resources that says we trust people. Thank you, Secretary Fudge, and the state and local leaders who have committed to this challenge. Ending homelessness will solidify our collective vision of housing as a basic need and right.
The CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan funded resources for individuals and families experiencing or at risk of homelessness at unprecedented levels. We need to make the most of this opportunity, and we need to be strategic. Thank you to Secretary Fudge for leading the way to ensure that we get as many people as possible into safe, stable, and affordable housing.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for the launch of House America. My name is David Gonzalez-Rice. I work for Secretary Fudge here at HUD. We're going to turn now to a portion of our program where we're going to hear in more detail about what communities around the country are doing with the American Rescue Plan and other resources to address homelessness in their communities. First, we're going to hear a little bit more about rehousing people from homelessness. And to moderate that discussion, I'm happy to introduce HUD's Deputy Secretary, Adrian Todman. Madam Deputy Secretary.
Thank you very much, David, and it's so wonderful to hear the comments of so many leaders across the country on an issue that is so important to all of us, particularly the Biden-Harris administration. And I'm pleased to moderate this distinguished group of mayors to talk about one of the two objectives of House America. The first objective is how do we rehouse as many homeless neighbors as we can. The second objective, of course, is how do we contribute more affordable housing to help stem the tide. But this panel will focus on rehousing. You know, as someone who has been in this space in the past, working with homeless neighbors to get them into homes, we know that one of the biggest problems is access to resources and sometimes just the lack of resources. According to HUD's data, there's only enough resources to rehouse 1 in 3 homeless families and only 1 in 7 homeless individuals. And we must do better, and we will. That's why the American Rescue Plan is such a game changer. Not only do we have the contribution of 70,000 net new vouchers, but we also have an infusion of home dollars that can help us to both build housing and also provide short-term rental assistance. But today, we are going to hear from some of our leaders in the community who are doing this hard work. I'm joined today by a distinguished group of mayors. First, the mayor of San Diego, Todd Gloria. We also have joining us from Philadelphia, Mayor Jim Kenney. We have a mayor from Miami-Dade County, Danielle Levine-Cava, and of course from Birmingham, Alabama, Mayor Randall Woodfin. I'm going to start us off with Mayor Gloria. Talk to us a little bit about your vision for rehousing our homeless neighbors and also how House America will help.
Well, thank you for the introduction and the opportunity to be here with my colleagues, talk about what is the most pressing issue in my city. And I share that very intentionally because we're in the middle of a pandemic, economic slowdown, a number of challenges, and yet this is what San Diegans talk to me the most about. And so I'm deeply appreciative to the Biden-Harris administration for lifting up this issue and putting considerable resources behind it. When considering our Housing America rehousing goal, we did what I think communities need to do, which is first to take stock of our current circumstances. We here in the city of San Diego spend millions of dollars on this issue. We've been spending more than we ever have on this problem, and yet we're not getting the results that San Diegans would expect. And so that really says to me that what we're spending the funding on is not as effective as it needs to be, and really need to take stock of what we're doing it, fund the programs that do work, eliminate those that do not, and try and find new nationally recognized best practices to invest in. And this is where the dollars from the American Rescue Plan become very, very helpful. Being able to take those new revenues as well as those repurposed dollars to really double down on proven strategies, I think is going to make a tremendous amount of difference and really help show San Diegans that this problem is solvable. I think we can all agree that many of our constituents don't believe that it is. And yet the conversation that we're having today, I think, illustrates that, yes, communities across this nation are successfully addressing this, and we can too. Lastly, I would just say that we're looking at the resources I mentioned that we're getting, 480 emergency vouchers, 100 rapid rehousing vouchers, And that's how we settled on our goal of rehousing 2,065 individuals experiencing homelessness and placing them in stable housing by the end of 2022. And I want to just be clear that this is a floor, not a ceiling from my perspective. Because of the leadership of Governor Gavin Newsom and our legislature, as well as great work of our city council, we are dedicating more resources to this, but my commitment to San Diegans and to the administration who's entrusting us with these limited federal dollars is that we'll get the results that people expect and hopefully end chronic homelessness in our city.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your contribution on the number of families you will look to rehouse. Let's now move across the country and land in Philadelphia. Let's hear from you, Mayor Jim Kenney.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate the invitation to be here, and I'm just happy we have an administration that actually cares about people and wants to solve problems in cities that deal with people. Through the Emergency Rescue Plan, HUD has allocated 863 emergency housing vouchers and $42 million in home investment partnerships in Philadelphia to help people experiencing homelessness to get the housing that they need. So I'm really happy to be here as part of House America. Homelessness and affordable housing are on the front lines of the struggle for racial equity. Too many people of color end up being homeless, and that means they can't get an education, hold a job, or otherwise achieve their personal dreams. In Philadelphia, we have made strides and are bucking national trends. Our numbers of families of people living on the streets and chronically homeless are all down compared to the national stats. But we are proud of our progress and commitment to affordable housing. But we can't do it alone. Federal government is an important partner, which is why we're all here today to continue that partnership. Philly has announced our commitment to rehousing at least 3,000 households as our contribution to House America. The federal government support makes this level of progress really possible. And in Philadelphia, we try to innovate. For example, our housing authority, working with the city, rehab scores of empty scattered site units. Today, we're providing shared housing for people coming in off the street, 3 adults living together as roommates like they were in college. These homes are permanently affordable, and we hope to use some of the home ARPA money to fix up another 20 or so houses for as many as 60 people. We are running a shallow rent program, one that makes affordable housing more affordable to people who are homeless, and one for people living on SSI and SSDI to keep them from cycling in and out of shelters. We're actually even giving tiny homes a try. And we have a small landlord repair program that we are expanding with local dollars so that our BIPOC landlords can meet the HUD housing quality standards and accept some of those emergency housing vouchers the Biden-Harris administration is making available. Our mom and pop landlords want to help the homeless, but they can't always fix a roof or a heater to get the unit to pass inspection to accept the voucher. So we're continuing to be committed to working on every aspect of housing folks. And thank God every day that the Biden-Harris administration are here to help us. I just want to say personally to Governor Newsom, way to kick butt.
Thank you very much.
It's a Philly thing. It's a Philly thing. I couldn't help it.
That's okay. That's okay.
I thought he was going to crush him, and he did. So congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And I'm actually looking forward to seeing how your shallow subsidy works. I know that's an innovation that's out there, and love to see how it's implemented. Now we're going to move south, out to Birmingham, Alabama, with Mayor Woodfin.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's truly an honor to join this amazing group of leaders from all across America. You know, as we collectively work together to combat housing challenges in all of our communities. I was honored for a few weeks back to host Secretary Fudge in our hometown of Birmingham. I was not only amazed by her energy and compassion that she showed to our residents, particularly in public housing, but we spent the entire day, she spent the entire day listening to our ideas and initiatives and offering her advice and insight on supporting our neighbors facing homelessness and housing instability in our community. Like the other mayors have said, our city of Birmingham, we've been hard at work at identifying strategies as well as opportunities to solve this crisis. In Birmingham, like the vast majority of other local jurisdictions across the country, is burdened with the lack of quality affordable housing, as well as an increase in homeless populations. And so for us, as part of the House American Initiative, the city of Birmingham has committed to rehousing 450 households experiencing homelessness. And we want to leverage private investment to deliver 800 new housing units. That's either completed or under construction or in the pipeline for construction by the end of next year, December 31st of 2022. And so our goal with support from, let's say, our for-profit as well as our nonprofit partners. The whole idea is the formation of a homeless prevention ecosystem. This ecosystem will have some core principles around how to use these funds, but identifying emergency shelters and transitional housing facilities, temporary housing units, as well as permanent supportive housing units and new affordable single and multifamily units for citizens of Birmingham. An added value for us was to initiate this reinvestment into our neighborhood by replacing vacant and blighted property with new development. And so this is a worthy conversation, and I'm honored to be a part of it. And I do want to thank Secretary Fudge for all she's doing.
Great, thank you so much, Mayor. And I will be join you in echoing just how amazing and how passionate the Secretary has been on this issue and really all issues related to making sure that we provide more affordable housing to our families and individuals across the country. It's been an honor to work with her, and we certainly look forward to seeing you again in Birmingham. Thank you, Mayor. And now we will move down to the sunny state of Florida and wonderful Miami-Dade County, one of my favorite places on the earth. I actually really like Philadelphia and all the other cities as well, but I've got family in Miami-Dade. So with that, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Mayor Lorraine Cava.
Well, thank you so much. We'll welcome you here when you come. And I have my son in Philly, so I'm a big Philly fan too. So it's a great pleasure to be with all of you today. Thank you especially to Secretary Fudge for this gathering. We are in an unprecedented crisis, we know, over the last 2 years because of the pandemic. We need to keep our people housed. We need to keep them housed, and we are working very aggressively here to expand our supply of affordable housing and to solve our housing crisis. And it's been extraordinary, the support that we've had from the federal government. I took office 10 months ago at the height of the pandemic, and we organized a comprehensive whole of government approach to provide relief to landlords and tenants that had been affected by COVID-19 and to keep our vulnerable residents in their homes. So we stood up an emergency infrastructure with our homeless continuum of care to protect and respond to the people that were experiencing homelessness. And we deployed an unprecedented level of collaboration across both government and the public sector to rapidly deploy our emergency rental assistance funds. This was, of course, made possible by the federal relief dollars to support our tenants and landlords. And I am extremely proud today to announce that we have allocated 100% of our latest round of ERAP, Emergency Rental Assistance Program funds. That was a total of $60.8 million, and we have supported over 6,500 families. We took a unique approach to this by focusing our special attention towards the writs of possession cases, the final stage of eviction. And I serve as sheriff as well as mayor and manager. And so I have responsibility for how those writs are executed. And so we made sure throughout the process that we reviewed each and every writ to identify and provide support to residents who might be eligible for rental assistance funding, regardless of whether they had completed the affidavit for the CDC. So we were able to review each and every case because of the role that I play. And in our proposed budget for the coming fiscal year, which we hope will be approved on September 28th, so send good karma our way, we are creating new permanent roles for housing advocates. And this is at the request of the housing advocacy community. We're now proposing 3 full-time staff members to support tenants and landlords in receiving these federal relief dollars and other resources to prevent homelessness and evictions. And we also teamed up with our court system to develop a court care program that is an innovative web-based portal to help promote mediation for pending eviction proceedings. So we're looking very much forward to recouping some of those dollars not spent in other jurisdictions to help us solve our continuing affordable housing crisis in the long term. And we've also dedicated in this proposed budget $260 million additional dollars towards expansion of affordable and workforce housing. We have an estimated 1,400 units coming on in some stage of development by 2022. And we also have been working very closely with our Homeless Trust. They've been allocated $5 million in American Rescue Plan home dollars to assist them in acquiring a building that will house at least 65 of our seniors who are recently homeless, and seniors are a big part of our homeless continuum. So the Emergency Rental Assistance Program is linked to our Continuum of Care network with the homeless programs, and we are helped by ERAP across the system. So we're working closely with federal government to mitigate the impact of the pandemic, and we're so grateful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mayor. And we just have a couple minutes left. And Mayor Levine, Kava, you talked about some of your partners. And I know, Mayor Woodfin, you talked about the work you're doing as being in an ecosystem. And that suggests that this is not work that is done alone. This is work that is done with a number of partners. I wonder if Mayor Woodfin or Mayor Kenny or Mayor Gloria, if you want to share some of the other partners that you're working with.
Well, I'll be quick, so maybe both of us can have time. You know, some of our key partners, believe it or not, our local housing authority is one of our biggest partners. We have an umbrella organization that engages various shelters and others that engage in homelessness called One Roof. Several foundations that include Woodlawn Foundation, as well as the YWCA of Central Alabama, AIDS Alabama, Christian Service Mission, Bridge Ministries, and other local organizations and foundations. We genuinely believe, like anything else in any other city, when you have an issue and you want it solved, you have a big project and you want it accomplished, public-private partnerships where we believe in addressing homelessness, you have to have the same approach. And so we're excited about our partners working with this because we don't get the necessary resources from the state of Alabama to engage in decreasing homelessness.
And we also work with our very dynamic housing authority under Kelvin Jeremiah. We're issuing a $100 million bond issue for our local housing trust fund to bring together the administration, city council, the housing authority, and local leaders to house all of America as best we can, or all of Philadelphia as best we can. So making those investments internally, not just looking to other governments.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Kenny. You know, with the last minute or so that we have, let's name a challenge that you feel that you need to overcome in terms of rehousing some of your homeless. This is just a speed round before we move on to our next panel here. I'll start with you, Mayor Levine Kava.
Thank you so much. Well, our land costs are skyrocketing. We're a very popular place, people moving here, and that is great on many counts, but it's making it increasingly difficult driving up, of course, our housing costs, as well as increased construction and labor costs. So we are working on long-term permitting process and how we can expedite it, but we do have some major challenges.
Great. There's a lot of best practices across the country. We're happy to share that with you. Mayor Kenny?
Yeah, addressing addiction and getting people housed is difficulty. And as you know, you can't force people into addiction services by just pulling them off the street. You have to get them to convince to go in and get better, and trying to get them better while we're trying to house them at the same time. Although housing them does make them getting better more likely.
That's right. It's that housing first model. Thank you, Mayor Kenny. Mayor Woodfin.
Without a doubt for us is funding to support and cover supportive services costs. That's our biggest challenge. As stated earlier, we literally receive little of any funding resources from the state of Alabama to address homelessness and mental health issues. And so, although we're very appreciative to receive resources and entitlement funding from HUD, it's simply not enough to support the wraparound services we need.
Oh, the Secretary and I are very happy to play a leadership role in helping your city get what they need. I think we may have lost Mayor Gloria.
I'm here.
Oh, there you go. I apologize. I just jumped in there. I didn't see you. Please, Mayor Gloria.
I would echo the comments of my colleagues here and just add NIMBY. This is, people are very upset about the condition of homelessness in their neighborhoods, but often don't want to accommodate an additional housing that will actually get them off the streets. It's a conundrum, it's a contradiction, and we as elected officials have to live with consistency. So when people holler at me about the people sleeping in their alleys, their canyons, and their sidewalks, trying to remind them, well, they have to be a part of the solution as well. We spend a lot of time convincing people to accept housing and shelters in their communities. And I would just share this as an observation. In my long public service career, I've constructed many homeless shelters and affordable housing complexes. Everyone complains on the front end. Very few complain on the back end. These can help improve your neighborhood. And I think we all have to explain that to our constituents.
That's right. We all love a ribbon cutting, for sure. Let me say my thank yous to Mayor Gloria, Mayor Kenny, Mayor Levine Cava, and Mayor Woodfin. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for joining us in House America. And we look forward to helping you along your finish line. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Hi, this is Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti, and I'm so excited to join all of you today to announce our involvement in HUD's House America program. Secretary Fudge, I can't say enough about the leadership that you and your team have shown in partnering with us to tackle homelessness, to make it a thing of the past here in America. In Los Angeles, we've committed historic resources to providing housing and services to our unhoused neighbors. The justice budget we passed here in Los Angeles just a few months ago commits nearly $1 billion of city money in this next year to ending homelessness. We're using every tool at our disposal to tackle these challenges head on. And Madam Secretary, you and the rest of federal government have had our back as we've surged our resources towards solving our housing crisis. Using American Rescue Plan funds and our state and local resources, we'll be able to build even more homes through our affordable housing managed pipeline and Project HomeKey, more new units than anywhere in America. And thanks to the generous support from HUD, the City of Los Angeles is committing today to create 1,100 additional units of housing for Angelenos. In addition, we have a secondary loan closing goal of 2,000 units that have been largely funded by our local Prop HHH, the nation's largest homeless housing initiative, $1.2 billion that we passed in 2016 that has been a large chunk of our recent unit creation. As a result of federal COVID support, we're also aiming to get these extra 2,000 units across the finish line in the midst of a pandemic. So from all of us here in Los Angeles, thank you, Madam Secretary, for your leadership and for the House America program.
Hello, I'm Mayor Raz Baraka from Newark, New Jersey, and I'm glad to be joining other local, state, and tribal leaders from across the country to House America. I am committing to constructing and building units of housing for residents who are experiencing homelessness in our city. Together, we will house America.
Now we're going to hear about communities' plans to achieve the other House America goal, to develop or get into the development pipeline new units of housing that can be used as an exit destination from homelessness. Joining us to moderate that discussion, I'm pleased to introduce Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, Wally Adeyemo, who's going to moderate and introduce our panelists. Mr. Deputy Secretary.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Secretary Fudge as well as Secretary McDonough for putting on this event, and my colleagues at USICH for hosting this event and shining a light on the homelessness crisis we face. The Housing America Initiative reflects the Biden-Harris administration's belief that homelessness has no place in America, and our commitment to expand housing access and keep families in their homes. At the Department of Treasury, we are laser focused on implementing programs under the American Rescue Plan to fulfill these goals and deliver critical aid to Americans in need. Under the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, we provided tens of billions of dollars to states and local governments to make payments to vulnerable tenants and their landlords to cover rent, utilities, in order to prevent unnecessary evictions. Through July, these funds have supported state and local governments in making more than 1 million payments totaling more than $5 billion to prevent evictions and support vulnerable renters. Still, many cities and states need to do more to get these funds out the door and into the hands of those who need them most. At the end of this month, we will begin reallocating funds from grantees who have not demonstrated a track record of successfully distributing these resources to other grantees who have shown their ability to put this money to work on behalf of tenants and landlords. In addition to ERA, Treasury has distributed more than $250 billion to states and local governments already as part of the $350 billion state and local physical recovery funds. Treasury has made clear that these funds may be used to provide services to help transition people from homelessness to stable housing and to rehabilitate and invest in new affordable housing units. I want to encourage all communities to take advantage of these resources to help expand the supply of high-quality, affordable housing in this country and prevent evictions and the long-term economic scarring that comes with them. This is the moment for communities across our country to act to protect those in urgent need and make generational housing investments so that we can come out of the pandemic even stronger than when we began. Now I have the privilege of moderating this panel with the distinguished local government leaders from across this country who can share what they're doing to combat homelessness and use the historic resources provided under the ARP to invest in housing opportunity. With that, I'd first like to turn it over to Mayor Steve Adler from Austin, Texas, to hear about the great work you're doing.
Deputy Secretary Adeyemo, thank you so much. Thanks for the help you and your staff at Treasury. Secretary Fudge, you and your staff pretty incredible in helping to deliver together with the Biden administration, quite frankly, a tool that will transform our cities. You know, in Austin, there's so much that's going right now. It's a magical place. But the success of an economy that's on fire is not enjoyed by everybody. And in fact, in some ways, that very success is making it harder for so many. You know, in our city, with housing prices increasing the way that they are increasing at the rate that they're increasing, we have more and more people that find themselves without shelter, or more and more people in tents in and around our city. We know what works. We know what it takes to get people into homes. Our challenge is we've never been able to scale. We've had success with veterans, we've had success with children, but we have never been able to actually put together the coalitions necessary and the funding necessary to be able to reach scale. You know, what we've been dealing with, I think, is kind of the politics of limited resources. So the people that are doing the work in this area are competing against one another for funds that are way too limited to be able to deliver what is truly necessary. What this means is that we have these one-off projects that are working, people doing wonderful work, but people that are not coordinating the way that they should, filling in and identifying and filling in the gaps, being able to create an entire system that begins with early diversion all the way through the different kinds and levels of housing to the permanent supportive housing. And then the federal support becomes available. The support in vouchers, the support in home, the support in the American Rescue Plan dollars presented to us, our share of the $350 billion, all of it presented to us the possibility to dream. What if we actually had enough money? If we really set this as the priority for our city and our county and our region, what could we do? What if we had enough dollars? And that led us to the place where we actually looked at this great fund, and we decided that we would focus on homelessness. It is the challenge in our city, like so many that you've heard about. And we would use those dollars, over $100 million from the city, the county getting its share of funds, also contributing over half of its dollars, over $100 million, both of us, to be able to reach a goal, to be able to bring in all of the actors and the participants finally working together as a coalition for a unified plan, because we were no longer dealing with the politics of limited resources. Set the goal, 3,000 people housed, incremental, 3,000 people over the next 3 years, but importantly, building out the system to be able to rehouse people in our communities. So at the end of those 3,000, new housing units, new housing opportunities, we would have a system that would be with us indefinitely thereafter, no longer ad hoc work. And that's what we've done. So the dollars to us brought us scale. It brought us the coalition. It brought us the ability with the city and county funds to create a challenge grant for our community. And we're in the process right now of raising the last $100 million as a challenge grant response to what the city and the county are doing to step up forward. Specifically, we're working now to ensure that all of our affordable housing projects are being incentivized to set aside units for people experiencing homelessness, deeper subsidies for deals that are doing all or mostly that kind of housing. We are acquiring hotels. We have 4 acquired at this point. We're developing with private developers to confer property tax abatement to make these projects and these fundings go farther. We're creating sustainable sources of local revenue for services. We're imposing strict timelines, new governance structure. We're developing a diverse portfolio of strategies, new construction, acquisition, rehab of smaller complexes, expanding tiny home village in our community. All of this together is enabling us to do something generationally, to deal with a challenge that has been with us for a long time, something we've always wanted to do something about, but have never had the tools to actually do the work. No one would have dreamed 2 or 3 years ago that we would be in a position today to say that within 3 years, we're going to get to the place where homelessness in our city is rare and frequent and non-recurring. Again, Secretary Fudge, thank you and your staff. We appreciate the administration. We're real supportive of the infrastructure bill, which we think is going to help us with the challenges that we see in the future. And we're excited on this call today to see so many communities doing the same work.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor. At this point, let me turn it over to Supervisor from Los Angeles, Holly Mitchell, to share a few words.
And good morning, and thank you so much for the opportunity. Deputy Secretary, would like to thank you and Madam Secretary for this unique opportunity. You know, was pleased to hear 2 mayors from my great state, my own Mayor Eric Garcetti, and my former colleague, the wonderful new Mayor of San Diego. We served in the legislature together, talk about what they're doing in their own cities. You know, I'm very proud of the fact that LA County is making bold investments for housing and services. And I think one of the most important takeaways from our work here in LA County is that we have a multi-pronged approach. You know, it's important, let me give people a context if you haven't visited my fair county. You know, LA County is 10 million residents. I am one of 5 supervisors, so I have the privilege of representing 2 million people. And the nation's capital for the unhoused. And my district bears the lion's share of the unhoused countywide. And so while we heard from Mayor Eric Garcetti, one city in the county, we have 88 other cities. And so we are working very hard in recognizing that the right solution is not a single solution. With homelessness, the foundational solution really is housing, which is why I've been a long time champion of housing first models, and in fact, carried the bill when I was a member of the legislature, making California a housing first state. We all know that housing is foundational, and we need diverse programs, strategies, and tools to address the different needs of people experiencing homelessness. This, for us, particularly at the county level, includes mental health, substance abuse services, to help people who are escaping domestic violence, young people in college, and also those who are former foster youth, as well as my family, friends, and neighbors who are just struggling to pay the rent due to the high cost of living in California and low wages. In LA County, you know, our residents voted to invest in a 10-year initiative with a 1/4-cent sales tax. And these resources are going to outreach and engagement of unhoused neighbors. We're using these resources for rapid rehousing and building new housing. We're providing mental health services. We're leveraging and expanding our existing programs. In addition, we're investing in new health and shelter facilities. I'm proud of one that's opening later this year in the district I represent. It's a unique model. It's called the Safe Landing. It's in the West Athens area of my district, and it's a 90,000 square foot campus that will serve just under 200 clients with round-the-clock operations. It's a shelter and bridge housing. So this is a model facility and infrastructure to support unhoused individuals in their transition from houselessness to permanent housing. And making sure we support people in that transition is critical, because what we see in LA County are far too many people who get housed in one of our unique programs but can't maintain their housing. So that's why these models with wraparound services, I believe, are really critically important. In LA County, we're invested in programs and services that have worked, innovating on health and shelter infrastructure, while at the same time providing resources for preservation of housing and new permanent housing. Again, our overall goal in this region for people experiencing homelessness is to get to functional zero, having a system with the right amount of beds and services for when someone does experience homelessness, that experience is brief. And again, as I said, with LA County having the distinction of being number one in terms of our sheer numbers of people who are unhoused, we are working very hard to make sure all 88 cities within LA County have the resources that we are matching at the county level as we draw down federal and state dollars, and that they're thinking creatively in terms of meeting the unique needs of today's unhoused population. Thank you, Deputy Secretary.
Thank you so much, Supervisor, for sharing your experience in Los Angeles. And now let me turn it over to Mayor Quinton Lucas.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and good morning for those of you out west. I'm Quinton Lucas from the comparatively small city of Kansas City, and I have enjoyed hearing some of the discussion of what you're all working on in Los Angeles County and in Austin. Let me first start with a bit of an apology. I find myself still stuck in Baltimore, where I attended a football game last night as the guest of Mayor Brandon Scott. It was not a successful one for us, and being here an extra day makes it somewhat more challenging. That said, I truly appreciate the opportunity to spend time with all of you. A few things that I can add to what my friend Mayor Adler said and Supervisor Mitchell. In Kansas City, we certainly have embraced a housing first model. Indeed, it was something that when I first became mayor about 2 years ago, I was touring a center that works with persons who are living with HIV and AIDS. And they said, even before the pandemic, about the challenges they were having of young people who were finding themselves on the street, more people with chronic health conditions on the streets, and they asked for our help. I think if there's one thing where perhaps, and it's fair to say we have not been aggressive enough, was making sure that we had long-term sustainable funding plans for transitional housing. And so I want to appreciate HUD for allowing us not only to look at how we're using American Rescue Plan dollars, but more importantly, how we can be as creative as possible right now to try to address some of those sustainability concerns. Like many of your communities last year during the high point of the pandemic, including during the winter months, we found temporary shelter opportunities for us, turning the Kansas City Convention Center into a place where we could find housing for hundreds of people, not just from Kansas City, but from throughout the region. What we saw after that was resettlement didn't just mean transitional housing, but also counseling services, making sure we had access to transportation, making sure we had access to job training, and really some of those ongoing counseling connections that have been so important for us. So the work we're trying to do over the next several years is to see how our new Housing Trust Fund, something that we were a little behind the times, but started this year and capitalized with an initial $25 million investment, could go towards actually addressing some of that counseling that is so essential for folks who are finding themselves in need of housing, particularly families with those sorts of issues. As someone who experienced homelessness myself earlier in my life, I understand that part of the challenge isn't just that there is a one-time solution. It's that there are folks who find themselves living on the edge each and every day. Define edge however you would like, but making sure that there's not only rental assistance, but in some ways there's actually assistance to help them find housing that works for them and their families, that's accessible to transit, to that family that's helping to support you, to so many others in your community. It is not enough for us to say we've got 200 units on the other side of town, away from your familiar resources, away from your job, away from everything you know. And so more of the work that we have tried to do actually steals a few pages from the Choice Neighborhood program at HUD itself, where we say, how do we make sure in every part of our community that there is accessible housing? How do we make sure that in every part of our community, whether you find yourself living on the edge each and every day in a more suburban part of Kansas City, one in the middle of our urban core, or one somewhere in between, how do we make sure that we have that support for you? So that has been a significant part of where we're going. I think fundamentally, the one thing that I encourage all of us to work on, and that I'm excited to work on with all of you, is what do we do after the federal money runs out? We have been blessed by this administration to have an outstanding, not only gap filler, but almost a direction-changing, transformative moment about how do we invest in housing? How do we center housing? How fundamentally do we see housing, in my opinion, as infrastructure? What do we do after 2024, after 2026? That's what I'd like to see us do. We've established a sales tax in Kansas City that helps support housing long-term. What we need to do is make sure that it isn't just a gap-filling incentive for developers, which candidly we've kind of used it as, but instead is something that actually is looking to build opportunity for folks long-term. So I thank you all for the time. I'm inspired by my fellow leaders who I know have dealt with this challenge. And I think more than ever before, as Mayor Adler noted, we're not just driving by or walking by people on the streets. We're trying to find real solutions because the problem is too important, impactful, and too big to ignore. Thank you.
Well, let me thank all three of you for sharing your perspectives on what can be done, not only about the immediate crisis we face, but how we create long-term solutions to that crisis. I will do a quick lightning round and ask you each for 1 minute, just on your thoughts in terms of, as all of you put it, the federal government has made a great deal of resources available to local and state governments over the course of the pandemic that will hopefully be transformative. But I want to ask the question, what else can we do to help state and local governments that are already doing the important work in this area? So for each one of you, I'll give you a minute to respond, and we'll start with Mayor Adler and then go Supervisor Mitchell.
I think a lot of what we need, the federal government is looking and considering as part of the infrastructure bill, and we sure hope that that moves through. You've given us a lot of resources. We've built the coalitions. We're going to build the housing. But we need long-term funding for social services, primarily the expansion of the HUD Continuum of Care program, social services, mental health block grants to states, incentives in Medicaid, rental vouchers for supportive operations, homes, CDBG, the LIHTC tax credit programs, funding for the National Housing Trust Fund, but mostly, I think, on an ongoing basis, what we're going to need next is ongoing substantive support for the services.
I agree with everything Mayor Adler says. I will take a step back up, if you will, to kind of a more 10,000-foot level perspective. And it touches briefly on what Mayor Gloria from San Diego said. You know, the challenge beyond capital and land is really updating our vision for what home and housing looks like in our country. A renewed vision for housing and what housing creation can possibly be. We all know that housing is a foundational element of the American dream, but what does that picture look like? It looks like a single family home with a lot of land space and a white picket fence. I think that picture needs to be expanded, just like images of a family have shifted in this country. You know, I am a single parent, and I'm an only child, and my father is deceased. So when I bought my duplex that I now own 17 years ago, a number of my friends were like, oh, a duplex, you know, really, is that what's wise? Particularly since I was transitioning out of the classic 2-story, 4-bedroom home. But the duplex worked for me because it allowed my mother to age in place right next door and allowed my very young son at the time to have a grandparent in close proximity, which for me as a single parent was critical. So I've lived this notion of how the vision around home ownership and what kind of construction we need to do needs to be as unique and varied as our population. So I think our people need to visualize diversity of housing options, which allows us to build denser, quicker for the entire range of incomes, because a major issue is affordability in Los Angeles. So I need my school teachers, my law enforcement, our janitors to also be able to have the privilege of home ownership and what that means to establish roots deep in a community. So from the federal government, in addition to reliable financial sources, we need help with that meta narrative shift about what kind of housing we should be building, and what homeownership looks like and feels like for every American.
And I'll just hop in briefly to say something perhaps a little different. I think that we need more accountability in terms of what our plans are, in many ways related to what Supervisor Mitchell was saying, and maybe a little less in terms of every dollar that goes to every individual. I'll start with the second point first. So many of our cities have all of these funding issues where we have received a good amount of funding, and you're hearing places that say that they're having trouble getting it all spent. What's the reason for that? It isn't just trouble on our end or bureaucratic challenges. It's the fact that you're getting folks who perhaps haven't been signed up on lists for ages, haven't been part of these extensive processes, trying to get them signed up before they can receive resources. If you are somebody who is struggling, who is out there every single day, that 30 minutes to sit down and fill out that form, that 45 minutes at a government agency in our city is a lot of time. If you're one of these organizations who we're saying spend all the money, don't hire staff, don't do all of that, right? That creates a bit of a challenge for us. So if I was looking for something, is there a way to shorten that, to streamline that process so that we're able to actually get money into the hands of people even faster? On the more accountability side, I'm not just a mayor asking to get away from y'all looking at us. On the more accountability side, where are we in terms of programmatically what we're looking to do? Too often, when we get money, we look to spend it immediately, whether it's housing dollars, infrastructure dollars, past dollars with anything else. We say we have $10 million, we say we spend $10 million, nobody asks what we did along the way. I would like, as part of every program, somebody says, all right, how is this long-term addressing housing issues in Los Angeles County and Austin, in Kansas City? How, more than just certifying to us that you spent the money in one of many lawful ways, which I would assume all of us will do because we don't like jail. I think more importantly for us is how do we actually make sure that we are continuing to establish more units after those dollars run out? As somebody who sits on my city council, probably the hardest part sometimes is to say, wait a minute, everybody. We're not going to be slow, but we are going to be thoughtful. We are going to make sure that we're addressing something for real that changes how we see housing in Kansas City. That is where we could use your assistance, your policy help, your ideas, telling us about the programs in Los Angeles or Austin we may not be able to see for ourselves. And that's why I think something like this is helpful, but more than anything, more encouragement to changing the face of housing long-term, not just answering the moment.
Well, let me say a word of thanks to each of you for the critically important work you're doing at the local level and for the advice you've left me and the other federal officials with as we think through how to advance the president's agenda to support the important work that you do. Thanks for the time and thanks for joining me on this panel.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Andy Gempta, the mayor of Columbus, Ohio, and I'm proud to be joining state and local leaders across the country to house America. Here in Ohio's capital city, we are building new units to support thousands of families experiencing homelessness. Together, we will house America.
I'm Sacramento Mayor Darrell Steinberg. I'm glad to be joining other local, state, and tribal leaders from across the country to house America. Sacramento has passed a comprehensive siting plan that commits us to creating enough capacity to place over 5,300 unhoused residents into dignified shelter and housing. This will allow us to address their immediate needs and successfully transition them into supportive and affordable housing projects, 450 units of which are already funded through our Housing Trust Fund. Together, we will house America.
I'm Mayor Kate Gallego from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm excited to join House America.
The City of Phoenix unanimously voted to create or preserve 50,000 housing units in the next decade. Together, we can house America.
I want to thank you all for is Anthony speaking now? Okay. I want to thank you all for joining us to hear about this historic initiative today. And I'm pleased to recognize Anthony Love, the Interim Executive Director of the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness. USICH has been a critical partner with HUD in launching this initiative, and so it's fitting that he offer these closing remarks today. Anthony?
Thank you so much, David. I appreciate the introduction. Again, I'm Anthony Love, the Interim Executive Director of the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness. And I want to thank Secretary Fudge, the chair of USICH, for launching this All Hands on Deck initiative, and for all the leaders who signed up for this effort. At USICH, our sole mission is focused on preventing and ending homelessness. We help state, local, and tribal governments create partnerships and effectively use all the resources at their disposal to end homelessness. USICH knows how committed so many mayors, county executives, tribal leaders, and governors are to addressing homelessness. The ones we've heard from today only represent a small fraction of leaders who not only care about this issue, but are willing to make it a priority. Now we're asking the rest to join us. By signing up for House America, state and local governments will get critical support in accomplishing their goals. The American Rescue Plan has already made billions of dollars available to rehouse people and build more affordable housing. But money alone won't achieve our goals. House America offers extra help through a whole of government approach to make the most of this once-in-a-generation opportunity. Homelessness has been a challenge for many communities for quite some time. The pandemic and the recent increase in the number of people experiencing homelessness has intensified the urgent need to get people into housing. Since 2016, the number of Americans experiencing homelessness has been growing, and some troubling trends have emerged. For the first time since HUD started collecting this data, more individuals are living on the streets than in shelters. People without a permanent home are particularly vulnerable to COVID-19. The pandemic threatens their lives and has made it harder for them to get rehoused. The good news is that we know the solutions. We know what works. Even with the recent rise in homelessness, the overall number of people experiencing homelessness has dropped 9% since 2010. Also, by joining a previous federal initiative, 82 communities in 3 states announced an end to veteran homelessness. At the core of all this progress is the Housing First approach. Compared to other methods, Housing First done right houses people quicker and reduces the likelihood of re-experiencing homelessness. Both the evidence and the logic make clear that permanent housing ends homelessness. People experiencing homelessness are mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters. They are us. We are collectively the United States. And it's our duty to make every effort to ensure that every person has access to a safe and affordable home. Today's launch of House America demonstrates the commitment of not only the federal government, but leaders across the country to live up to that duty. Of course, we know there will be challenges. We know it won't be easy. But House America's purpose is to help communities overcome those challenges and to change the lives of the men, women, and children who are homeless in communities across the country. To learn more or join, visit the House America website. We look forward to you joining us in helping us to house America.